Welcome to another life story coming live on LifeStories Worldwide. We bring you stories on social media from all over the world, going out all over the world. Stories, all types of stories. Stories of challenges, of hurt, pain, abuse, but also stories of fulfillment and happiness and joy. And these stories can be viewed over again many times on our YouTube channel. If you want to contact us, you can contact us through our website, LifeStoriesWorldwide.com. And on there, you'll find lots of resources to help you, including our app that you can download, and also a Bible app that you can use for your own personal reference. Today, our life story is coming from Israel. It's the first time we've had a story from Israel, where we have Russ Taylor waiting. He's going to share his story. His story is one of where he traveled around the world at the age of 20. Starting at the age of 20, he traveled around the world twice, and then lots of other experiences. And so I'm welcome the people who are watching today, especially in Ukraine, and those who are listening on Torch Trust. It's great to have you with us, and all the other people around the world, we welcome you. As I hand over now to Russ to share his story. Thank you, Russ.
Okay, thank you very much. Welcome to you. It's evening here. As you can see or hear, I'm from the UK, and I live in Israel occasionally. That's another story. Actually, I gave my message, my story, about a year ago, but I'm not sure whether, there's people listening today have heard the story. You can go onto LifeStoriesWorldwide.com and put in Russ Taylor, and you can hear my story from a year ago. But a lot of new people, I'm sure, listening today, this evening or afternoon, wherever you are. And so I intend to really go through my story yet again. I've given it, I would say, thousands of times. It was 50 years ago. I like to begin my story when I was at the age of 7, and my father came home, and he said, I was out today in the big city of London, and I've lost your mum. And I've got 2 older sisters, and we thought, what do you mean you've lost your mum? You've lost our mum? How can that be? And it was like somebody had hit me over the head with a hammer, because I thought, well, where is she? What is she going to come back? And of course, good things happen on your birthday, or they happen, at special times. And I think all of us thought that she would come back, but she didn't. Now, when I say it was like somebody hit me on the head with a hammer, I had to cope with it at the age of 7. And the only way I could cope with it was to gradually hate her. And that hate was really growing in my heart. Hate, anger, temper, bitterness, quite uncontrollable as I grew up. And then obviously we realized, that's it, she's not coming back. Childhood friends would say, where's your mum? And I used to say, well, my mum's a bitch, and don't talk to me about her. Really hurting. Maybe that relates to some of you. You've had experiences in your life that have really hurt you, maybe in childhood and maybe later in life. I don't know. Maybe you're experiencing a lot of pain and hurt now. But at the age of 10, my father went into prison, and he'd been in twice before, and he was a safe cracker, quite a 1950s, hoodlum, if you like, not a violent man, but he used to handle gelignite, and he'd been in the war. I don't think he's particularly an explosives expert, but he used to handle gelignite and blow up safes. So that gives you an idea of my background. So my sisters went to live with an aunt, and I went to live with my grandparents. Now, my grandparents really loved me. They were my father's parents. And but it wasn't the same. I was split up now. My mother left, my father left. Now I was separated from my sisters, and this chip on my shoulder, this idea that life had really done the dirty on me and it owed me something. And I was, as I say, I was this growing up as this angry person, and I couldn't find a way out of it. I suppose my only way out of it was to try new things, try different things. I was living with my grandparents in the north of England, and I thought, well, okay, once I get to 17, I'm going to go back down the south where I'm from, and maybe that'll be the answer. So you could say I was searching. Maybe you can identify with that, searching. I certainly wasn't searching for God, and I certainly wasn't searching for religion. That was the last thing on my mind. But I was searching for something, some way out of this hurt and pain that I had. So, fast forward a little bit, I got down south, and a friend of mine said, what we're going to do. We were doing this job, that job, the other job. And I was living in what they call digs. I had a landlady, and her son had been in the merchant navy. And he'd come home one time and he said, well, why don't you go round and see the world? Join the merchant navy. And I thought, well, I've got no qualifications. I left school early. Perhaps I'm not going to be able to, get on a ship. But in those days, me and my friend we went around the shipping agents. Eventually, we found the P&O line, Pacific and Orient line. And they said, well, yeah, you've got to join the Seamen's Union. And so that took about 3 months. And we were going to go on as the lowest of low, cleaning and...
He's coming. Jesus is coming. I can't wait to hear the trumpet call. He's coming. Jesus is coming. And when he comes, we'll crown him Lord of all. And when he comes, we'll crown him Lord of all.
What they call utility stewards. But I wasn't bothered. All I wanted to do was now see the world, having been told about how I could go about it. So eventually we joined the union, and eventually we got on the ship. And the ship that I was on was called the SS Canberra. And it was a P&O ship. And I got a telegram. Do you know what a telegram is? And in those days, they didn't have mobile phones and WhatsApp and all of these things, that the technology they have today. This was 50 years ago. So I got a telegram saying, join the SS Canberra, sailing the next day. This was on a Saturday, sailing on the Sunday, go down immediately and join the ship. So I go down, I've got no qualifications. I don't know what's going to actually happen. So we go down, we get on the ship, and we go to the purser's office, and he's got a clipboard in front of him. And he says, right. And there was about 7 of us in this office. So they'd got the crew. They were sailing the next day, and they were short of a few crew. And he said, right, 2 waiters. Well, at that moment, nobody said anything. So me and my mate, we put our hands up. We said, yes, Now I don't know whether on the clipboard it had names by it, but we were told then to go down to the restaurant, and there was a 2-class ship. This was a 2nd class, and we had to see the head waiter. And suddenly become a waiter, so I didn't know what to do, because there was all this different cutlery and glasses and everything. And the head waiter said, "That's all right. We'll get one of the other waiters to show you the way around." So that's how I became a waiter on a cruise liner. And so it was hard work for that first 2 weeks. We were getting used to it. It wasn't difficult. Serve tables and learn how to serve the food and everything. And there, instead of being a utility steward, I was now a notch up. I was now a waiter. And we did a 2-week cruise into the Mediterranean. I was signed on for the next cruise, which was a 3.5-month round the world cruise. And when I say round the world, we actually came back the same way. So it wasn't literally right around the world, but and whilst I was on that 3.5-month world cruise, we used to drink a lot. Booze was cheap, but I was never really into that kind of thing. I didn't really like it. It always made me feel ill. But then I was introduced to smoking marijuana, and there were people on board who used to smuggle it on board, and we went to places like South Africa where it was a danger as well, because you had to avoid the police and everything. And so more and more I thought I'd found my niche. I was smoking more dope, and I was mixing with people that take drugs, and so I was introduced to other things. I never took heroin, but I took amyl nitrate and speed, all that. And I mean, quite, nowadays, not much what people are into. There's no cocaine around and things like that. But I thought, oh, this is an answer for me. So I came back, and my family, my sisters, they had seen a change in me. And I think they were a bit worried about me, actually. But then I had a 4.5-month round the world cruise, and that was literally around the world, through the Panama Canal and out into the Caribbean and into Jamaica. So it was on that trip, so I can really fast forward a bit more. I was more and more getting a little bit worried about because that was my last trip, the 4.5-month world trip. And, I thought, well, okay, what happens when, I'm back in the UK and getting marijuana from places like Acapulco? It all sounds really glamorous. It was quite dangerous. The drug world is very dangerous, but I was more concerned about, when I got back, what was I going to do? I was becoming a bit worried about it. And then what happened was there was these 2 ladies, and they joined the ship in Hong Kong. And their names were Judith and Beryl. That's all I know about them. Now, what I was serving was two sittings. I had 8 passengers on the first sitting and 8 passengers on the second sitting. And these 2 ladies I thought were very weird, because they used to pray before meals. I thought, well, they're very odd. I'm not quite sure about them. But one thing I learned afterwards was they were praying for me. And, even today, I have an affinity with waiters, waitresses. I like to ask them their name. It's something that's kind of stuck with me, because these 2 ladies, they were praying for me. And now, again, I can sort of fast forward to the time when this fear really took hold of me. And remember, I knew nothing. I didn't know about spiritual things. I was searching. but I was heavily into the drugs. And I've told my story so many times that, you know, people think, oh yeah, well, it was the drugs, this is what, but we knew what was real and what wasn't. And now it begins to revolve around that date, which is on the advertising, the 1st of May, 1972. We were about 5 days from home. I was really afraid. I started to really experience a lot of evil. Now, when we'd been getting drugs in specifically actually Mexico and other places, and I'd been given things to wear. And one of them in Mexico was, I think it might have been you know, like a Catholic rosary. It was a crucifix with the head of Jesus on it and the scene of the Calvary, you know, embossed on it. And I thought, you know, I'd seen Dracula films and things like that, you know, where they go like this. And I thought, I'll put that on, that'll protect me, you know, I'll be all right, because there was this fear had really come over me. And so much so that I said to these two ladies on the 1st of May, 1972, I said, there's something really evil on this ship. I don't know what it is. And they said, oh, we know. Because the day before, the 30th of April, and maybe you know this, maybe you don't, there's 4 festivals of Satan a year. And the 30th of April is known as Beltane.
He's coming. Jesus is.
Life Stories.
It's not a well-known one. Of course, the most well-known festival is Halloween, but I knew nothing. I didn't know what was happening. I had these things on. I had a terrible fear. I knew something was not right. I sensed it. And then when I asked these two ladies and mentioned it to these two ladies, they said, oh, we know. Hardly anybody got any sleep last night. There's all sorts of funny things going on. And I thought, well, how can they know? There's these two strange women. How can they possibly know about this? And so come the evening of May the 1st, also May the 1st is also Atheist Day. It's a day when the communists would celebrate. And you've probably heard of the May Day parade. And so back to back, you've got this festival. And then the next day, May the 1st, you've got this atheistic day of May the 1st. And the evening comes, I'm serving the first lot of passengers, and my two ladies are on the first sitting. And I said to them, if I need help, will you help me? I don't know why I asked them. I thought, I just don't know why. And they said, oh, yes. And they wrote down their cabin number. And I had that in my top pocket in my uniform. And the second sitting started. And 2 passengers came in quite quickly. And they asked for, I remember tomato juice was on the menu. And where in the, you know, you've got hundreds of waiters. And so they put the tomato juice in an urn. And you go over with the glasses and you fill it up and you bring it back to the passenger. Well, as I made my way over to the urn on the buffet bar, I started to hear sounds and wailing and chanting noises really high up. Well, the ceiling, or the deckhead, as they call it, on a ship is not very high. It's very low. But this was way out somewhere. And I thought, what? And the thing is, I had tried to give up the drugs, as I knew that I was getting nearer to the UK and it wouldn't be so easy to get. I tried to give it up, and I found that I couldn't do it. I was addicted, or or they say it's non-addictive, but it is addictive, and it leads you onto other drugs. And I feel that at that point, and I think it's quite an important point, this, I gave my will away. I basically said, I'm not in control anymore. And there are many things in life, maybe you've experienced, where you don't feel you're in control of yourself anymore. And I didn't feel that with the drugs. So anyway, going back to this May the 1st in the evening, and I'm going over to the tomato to get the tomato juice. And as I go over, I see that it's been spilled on the floor. Somebody's got a white cloth and cleaned it up. And it was blood. It looked like blood. It smelled like blood. As far as I was concerned, mentally, I was completely deceived. I had all this wailing sound and chanting sounds going on. And as I looked at it, my head went back and I was about to pass out. But as that happened, I didn't pass out. I felt I can only describe them as angels. I didn't see them, but I felt my arms go from side to side, and I was then pushed out of the restaurant. There was a revolving door in for the waiters and a revolving door out. And I went into the galley where you collect the food. And there on the right-hand side were some steps that went down. Unbelievably, it went down to passenger accommodation, F deck. Now, I don't know if you've ever been on a ship, been on these big cruise liners. They're massive now, and they're like a city. You even if you know your way around, you can get lost. But there was at the bottom of these steps was F deck. I had the piece of paper in my hand with their cabin number on it. I turn around the corner, and right in front of me is the door of their cabin. Now, by this time, I couldn't believe it. I was shaking. I was weeping. I thought, what's happening to me? What is happening to me? I don't know. And so I knocked on the door, and to my surprise, they were expecting me. And they were calm. It was, they'd been praying for me. And suddenly I appear in this complete mess, breaking down, wondering what's going on. And I knew nothing. I didn't even know what was happening. And they calmly said to me, come in. And I remember she sat me down, and she looked at me and she said, do you believe that Jesus Christ can save you? And I'd never heard that in my life. I knew about Jesus from school, but I wasn't interested in him. I wasn't interested in religion at all. But the word came out of my heart. And it's interesting because there is a verse in the Bible that says, man believes with his heart and confesses with his lips. And I felt the word come up, out, and out of my mouth. And I said, yes. And then she said, right. And she put her hands on my head and she said, right, say this after me. Now, to this day, I don't remember what she told me to say. It could have been, Jesus sets you free. The blood of Jesus will set you free. I don't remember, but I couldn't talk. My tongue turned over and I was choking on my tongue. And she grabbed hold of me and shook me. And she said, you say it out loud. And I managed to blurt it out. And then what was happening was, and remember, as I said, I didn't know what was happening really. But what was happening was I'd allowed evil spirits to get into my life. I'd given my will away. I'd open up my spiritual life, if you like, to spirits to come in, and they were working in me and controlling me, although I wasn't aware of it. And when she started to pray, I could hear the other lady. she had a hand on my back and a hand on this lady's back. So there was the two of them, and she was praying for me. And I felt this welling up in the pit of my stomach and a kind of a pressure and a pushing out of my mouth. And she was casting evil spirits out of me in the name of Jesus, in his authority, in his power. And I was just really struggling. I didn't know what was happening.
He's coming. Jesus is coming. I can't wait to hear the trumpet call. He's coming. Jesus is coming. And when he comes, we'll crown him Lord of all.